Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 692. The road to 700 begins. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the master of speculation, the duke of the sultan of strategery, the bridge defying, is worried after reading this episode's stories that Sean is trying to clone him in a lab because he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking about Adventures of Superman John Kent, issue number 2, and Superboy Man of Tomorrow, issue number 1. We also have some speeding bullets, and we're going to be talking in that one a little bit about the Lararuz Planet, Revenge of the Gods sequence in there, and Wonder Woman. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, we have Wonder Woman issue number 800. It's 40% off, only $3.59. Plus, there are 8 different variant covers, also 40% off, ranging from $4.19 to $4.79. And this month, we have the DC Pride 2023 one-shot, also 40% off, $5.99, plus all of the various variant covers for the Pride. So, thank you, DCBS.
I've become a big fan of variant covers.
Yes.
And I think what's really ramped it up for me is, I mentioned later in the episode that I've done a lot of work in my workout room where I've been hanging things up again, like signed comics and things that I have. And some of them are variant covers that I got signed deliberately because I loved the cover and wanted to get the creator to sign that. Boy, they're really sharp. I mean, some of the stuff they're doing is really, really clever and really talented individuals that are doing those. So if you haven't tried collecting some variant covers, check them out. And this is the way to get them because they're hard to find later. It's always good if you can pre-order them. Over at InStockTrades.com, they always have their deals of the week, and this is my first go-to. They have Batman Who Laughs, the deluxe edition hardcover. $39.99 regularly, 50% off, only $19.99. Legends of the Dark Knight, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I cannot recommend this enough. $49.99 regularly, 50% off, only $24.99. This is a favorite series of ours from the past, Jim. Who is Wonder Woman? The deluxe edition. $29.99 regularly, 50% off, only $14.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for giving us such great deals. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Our first discussion this episode is going to be Adventures of Superman John Kent, issue number 2. The writer is Tom Taylor. The artist is Clayton Henry. The colorist is Jordi Belair. Wes Abbott on letters, Clayton Henry and Marcelo Maiolo on the cover. Zoo, it's Tiago da Silva, Mike Perkins and Mike Spicer on variant covers, John Timms on the Superman variant cover, Julian Grant, the assistant editor, Paul Kaminsky is the editor, Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Superboy created by Jerry Siegel by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. Boy, this book has been, I love John Kent. I've been a big fan of John Kent. I'm a big fan of Tom Taylor's writing. The art team's nailing it. It's what I wanted, and I didn't know I wanted it. So there's things going on in this. I figured, okay, it's a big battle between Superboy, or Superman, I should say. I keep calling him Superboy. Superman and Ultraman. I'm like, this is what I wanted. I want to see the battle between the two of them. And now it's heading in a injustice direction, which I wasn't expecting, and I love it. I really like being surprised by a story in ways that I wasn't expecting. That's where I'm just kind of, we'll get into details of it, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. This is a fun series. Where are you?
Dude, man, I'm loving this. I am absolutely, again, like you, I'm a fan of John. Yeah, I really dig John. And I'm glad we're also going to be talking Connor because Connor was just that wonderful character. So I was like, when they first started talking about John Kent, I'm like, oh, okay, that's gonna be cool. Lois and Clark's, kid. Yeah, I want to see that. And then they did that aging, and I was like, I kind of really did want to see him grow up, but they kind of covered it in the book. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then as he takes on the mantle of Superman, I was like, yes, I like the fact he's not being called Superboy. I wanted him to be called Superman, or even I still kind of like dangle on the edge. Do I want them calling him Superman or calling him a different code name? And it is one of those. One time I like him as Superman. One time I'm like, I wish he had his own personal identification. I don't even know what it could be. But the thing is, one of the reasons I sometimes want him to have his own personal identity is because I like the character so much. I like John so much. And as they've gone through and started, really diving in who is John Kent, what he is about, how he looks at life differently than his father, but he still has that same Superman mindset where, this is a job for Superman. I've got to save people. But for him, he looks at it differently because he's born on this planet. He is an Earthling. Yeah. He is, he's half human, but he's also born on this planet. So he should have a more personal connection than Clark has. And he does. And you start seeing that more in this Superman. So I was like, there's always, some really cool stuff. So when you've got this whole him versus Ultraman, like you, man, I was excited for it. I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. I'm thinking, episode 6 is when we'll get the big battle. And I'm like, what the heck?
I love that you refer to issues as episodes.
Yeah,
Wait, I want to be very clear. I am sort of teasing. I really do love it. I mean, it's because we're in such an era of, and it's where I think it's a little bit different now, and your ease of comfort in referring to them that way. Think about how television shows are becoming more and more structured into these smaller arcs, that miniseries really are very similar to how we're watching television now.
Yes.
In its own way. So I really wasn't like knocking you when I was saying it. It is funny how it's more timely. This is a great thing to pick up and binge watch. Yeah. And it's something that's interesting with comics for people that are in today's streaming crowd. If you're watching a Disney Plus show or an HBO Max show or something like that, comics have something for you. So it's a really interesting time. So I really was making a point there versus other times where perhaps I've been a putz and then made the same comment. I thought it was intriguing now where I'm like, boy, it's funny that he's so comfortably switching to that. But that really that's how we're watching more and more television nowadays.
Yeah. And the more we get, more page time that we get Lois and Jay together, I absolutely love.
I do too.
Yeah, especially where you think where this thing started. When he first met the family, how just he was because it's Lois Lane. He wasn't as freaked out about Superman. He was about Lois Lane because, the significance she's had in his life. And I was like, I love those interactions. And now we get this where it is, the significant others of Superman having a conversation. And I love just how she plays it out, how she just goes headfirst into the battle just because she needs to only focus. It keeps her mind from focusing on all the horrific things that could happen to Clark. And even she admits it's not really healthy. But I loved the bit where she's like, I do have a bit of advice. Make him promise to come back. Superman never breaks his promises. That for me was just that's outstanding. I loved that.
Yeah, and that it's really cool when you start seeing the relationship kind of develop and the relationship between mom develop. And Lois, one of the nice parts about Lois in all the comics nowadays is we're starting to get a lot more screen time with her and seeing her in a wide variety of roles. We're seeing her in the work world. We're seeing her with her husband. We're seeing her with her son. We're seeing her interacting with other heroes. We're seeing her undercover. There's a lot of Lois Lane storytelling depending on what book that you're reading and what timeline it is and what world in the multiverse it happens to be. And she's one of my favorite characters. I was putting up in my workout room, I've over the years, and this is when you and I have gone to conventions. Let's go predating that. We're going back to the 90s. I went to conventions with my wife where I've gotten autographs from favorite comic creators, either on comics or on original artwork. I've gotten from celebrities, pictures, the stuff that we all get when we go to conventions. Well, for a while, a lot of that stuff was either securely in drawer boxes or in albums. I didn't really have them displayed anywhere. My old house, I had a wall that I did that kind of stuff with, but we all do it, right? We amass more stuff than we have space for. Where my workout room now has given me 4 walls to work with. And I've started just putting this stuff up there. Well, what's triggering this is I forgot I even had this. I knew I met her, but I didn't remember getting a signature from Margot Kidder back when she was at Columbus. She went to Mid-Ohio Comic Con there, and I got an opportunity to meet her. And it was cool because Mid-Ohio Con was one of those where it wasn't like, yes, you were in a line, but you actually got to sit down and have a moment, which you don't always get at conventions. And it's not a knock on the celebrities. A lot of times, depending on the numbers that you're dealing with, you got to move quick. And she actually gave me, a few minutes, and we got a chance to talk. And I really wanted that signature in there. I also met Noel Neal, who was the one from the old Black and Whites. Oh. She was at, not that same exact one, but it was a previous year she was there, and she couldn't have been more delightful. So I've had an opportunity to meet a couple on screen, Lois Lanes, and they were both absolutely awesome, which everything you want when you meet people that were in this universe that brought it to life. Because I love the old Black and White George Reeves Supermans. And it was really cool to meet her, and she couldn't have been more lovely and looked like, it was like you could tell, oh my God, that's Lois Lane. It was super cool. Even though, she was later in life, boy, example of aging well, that you can identify, oh my gosh, that is her, and I'm getting an opportunity to talk to her. It was super cool. Lois Lane has been one of those characters, though, since my childhood, and I'm sure yours as well, has just been a part of my life. And it's cool to see this character continue to adapt and evolve to be even though she's more contemporary, she's very today, she's very current. At the root, at the core, she's still got all of these really cool qualities that drew us to her in the best of television, in the best of film over the years. You and I have been fans of, the Terry Hatcher, Dean Cain show, we, Straight On Through Smallville, all that. This is a character that really has endured the test of time. She sometimes gets lost in the conversation when you're talking about Superman and could not be, I think to me, if you're missing Lois Lane, you're missing a big part of the story with Superman. And she's pivotal here.
And I think that's something that they've done really well in the later years, to really make sure just the strength of making sure this character is that much stronger. Because again, it's one of those things with me, and a great Superman story needs to have a great Lois Lane. Just because I always say, why would this man with godlike powers be in love with a mere mortal? Well, it's not just about physical beauty. It's about who she is. And every variation of Lois Lane has that strength of character, has that persona that they really show why would he be in love with her. And the briefness that we've had in this series with Lois, it still comes through in moments. And even alternate versions of her, the Red Tornado version,
yes,
you see that. So it's, again, I love I love when a writer takes their time and actually gives us this Lois Lane. And with the John story, making Jay somebody of significant in John's life. You got to understand, why is he with Jay? Well, we're seeing that, and they did a great job with development of their relationship, just as well as they've done this great job with Lois and Clark. So, whenever I pick up a Superman book, whether it's Clark or John or any of the other Superman, you got to look at who is the support with them, because them by themselves is an amazing story. But when you have that interaction with that human side, with that love interest, with that that personal connection, that really brings out the person behind the costume. And with this story, again, I was thinking, they swerved me, and I'm now going, what's up with what's going to happen in issue 3 now? Because I had my whole mindset on how this thing was going to go, and okay, throw that out the window, Jim. Now let's see what happens.
I love that though, right? Because especially with previews and things like that, and that's not knocking it. What you've got to do with previews is you got to draw people in, and they have to do it any way they can. So I'm not knocking what you have to do in previews, but I look at previews for the intention of not missing books that I want to read. And sometimes you know a little bit too much about the story beats, right? And they have no choice. I mean, you got to hook people in. So I get it and support, on the fact that they need to do that. It's great when a story can swerve you. I mean, really swerve you. And I did not see that coming. I knew that there was going to be some injustice thing because of the fact that the first issue cover, it's right there, But I didn't, necessarily have in my mind what that was going to look like. And certainly didn't think it was going to be where this issue went. The other piece that I would like to note over this is I really liked, I'm jumping back a little bit to issue 1, but I really liked the fact that this book opened up with John reflecting on how life is different now. John has a secret identity for the first time in his life. It is, he is able to really embrace a secret identity because, before Clark's reveal, John was so young that it just didn't really matter as much.
Yep.
Whereas now he's at an age where, he's taken on the responsibility of being Superman. It's really cool to see it from his perspective, where just the opportunity to get away and vent. And it's really something now where he almost needs to be the support piece for his boyfriend, who doesn't have that luxury anymore because he's still outed as being this character who he is. And he doesn't have that kind of thing. He can only be the boyfriend of Superman, not really John Kent, which it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. And I'm hoping this miniseries leads to a series of miniseries because I'm happy with this being season-based, right? Where this is the first season of the John Kent miniseries, and we will get more of them along the way. Cool. I'm happy with that because, again, it fits kind of the streaming model that we get nowadays, collects nicely. I just want ongoing stories with these characters because their relationship, you're right, matters to me. I like him as a supporting character. I want to know more about what his struggle's like. Because I actually care about the character. It matters to me.
Yes, 100% agree. And again, I think one of the neat things on this story has been pacing, layout. Like you think about it, it starts off all those years ago where John, lost all that time because of Ultraman. And they gave you a nice one-page spread to kind of give us this background, and then it goes into the family. And then it goes into the action. And then it goes, and I loved how, again, great balance of when we need story development, when we need character development, when we need that physical action to keep you going. It's the same thing with humor moments in a comic.
Yeah.
If you do too much humor, it becomes just a slapstick goof, which can be fun to read, but it doesn't have that as solid impact as that well-placed sniper shot of a one-liner. Or that one moment where it's kind of a little bit of levity, and okay, now we're on to more serious stuff going on. It's it's tricky balance, and again, we're dealing Tom Taylor, so it's going to be a well-written story. So I'm not surprised by the fact that it is laid out wonderfully, but it is always something that I do really enjoy because, again, it's the usage of even the page flip. When you read something, you flip the page. Oh, okay, whoa, what the heck, and it's kind of that shock and pop.
What's interesting about this story is how we've got this really cool Ultraman story with Ultraman as kind of this ramped up villain, which, sometimes Ultraman has almost been nerfed over the years, right? Because of his ego, because he's a egotistical but yet somewhat cowardly, self-absorbed Superman. There's an inherent weakness there, right? He's paranoid. He doesn't trust anybody. It's ultimately all these things are his downfall. Well, this is an Ultraman unchecked. I mean,
yes.
It's and very different level where he's going around killing Clark Kent's, taking them out of the game. It's a really interesting, you think this is going in one direction. And I like how we've got the other Superman who shows up on scene, and because of the fact that he's come from the multiverse, and John, because of his traveling, I like that little detail of, well, when you do this enough, you start to notice little details and like the molecular structure and things like that kind of tip you off. I thought that was a neat little addition. But I like that the other Superman came in and he goes, hey, listen, we got to get in touch with Mr. Terrific because we don't have the time for me to prove myself to you. Yeah. And, he's recognizing the need that, trust has got to be on the table. The only way this is going to happen right now is if we go to somebody who's going to be able to vouch for me that you're going to believe in, and I get it. I thought that was just a really cool story beat and cool attention to detail because there's a reason for Mr. Terrific to be that person because he'd been in combat with this person. They're comrades at arms. He can vouch for him, and it's somebody who John's going to immediately respect. Yes. And I thought that was something that was a really interesting story beat, and it was a great way to showcase, for those of us that have read the storytelling with Mr. Terrific and that Superman before and this robot Lois, it was cool to see all of this coming together. Again, these are things I didn't know I wanted in this book. Yes. And they were here, and I'm like, oh, man, this is like comfort food. Like seeing these people come back after this time, but interacting with each other. And there's, again, it's not just like blam, they're plopped in for the appearance of like a cheap cameo. There's a sense of progression with these characters. There's a sense of this is taking place after storytelling that I've already read with them. Oh, this is what they're up to now. And they're involved trying to take care of this Ultraman problem. It's dangerous because this guy's running around killing Superman. And obviously there's a reason why they don't want Clark involved. They came in deliberately at a time where Clark was not around so that way they could bring John in because, hey, we got to change the game up because if Clark gets involved, Clark's done. Like, your dad will get involved because he would never put you at risk, and he's dead. Yes. We can't have that happen here. That premise I thought was really strong. Like, they're trying to disrupt a pattern. The only way to disrupt I like that there's two John Kents they could go for. They could go for him or the other one. And I like the reasoning for going for this one. It was, I like little tiny details like that. That's where continuity's fun, right? Yes. They aren't throwing anything out the window. Stories in the multiverse that we've read. He's fighting dead people.
His universe infested with the undead. So that's the deceased universe. I was like, oh, cool. I'm glad they did that. Like some of the stuff you said, I was like nodding my head along with you on just the usage of John's usage of the same power set. He does things differently than Clark does. Mm-hmm. He's able to, especially on the vision side, because as you said in the last issue where he could notice the differences and knew, okay, this is an alternate Earth. All right. But we've seen him and Clark when they were working together where John was able to combine supervision and the heat vision to make a microscopic, precision laser that he went and, throw the X-ray vision onto it. And he was able to actually do surgery inside, and I can't think of who it was, but it was that one alien, and he was able to use it for precision surgery inside the alien. Clark could never do that. John already had that ability because his powers developed differently. His strength is a little different than what Clark's is. His power set, it's the same power set, but we're seeing tweaks, and not even just the Lararuz Planet tweak changes. It's just even the natural growth of John. He had different powers. He had different variations on it, and specialties than Clark did. So again, I like the fact that they went to this one because again, this is a Superman, not a Superboy. This is someone who's ready to take on the fight, and actually someone I 100% would want him, in my corner fighting. They gave us a reason why they didn't do Clark, but also another solid reason why they go with John.
I like that his power set with what's happened with Lararuz Planet is there's kind of it links to Superman Red and Superman Blue.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little touch. I don't know if they're deliberately going for that. I kind of think they were, but it worked really well in this, which was something that was super interesting. There's so much to really love because even his costume kind of becomes Superman Blue when he uses the power.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something that I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I think it's important to do that at this point because it's not the name Because you mentioned before, should he have his own code name, that type of thing. And I teeter-totter off of that, too. Maybe even more so than you do. I'd love him to eventually get his own code name. But I don't know that at the end result, it's more stuff like this is really what I want. What defines him as unique? This is the kind of thing where it's compelling, right? You're right. Yeah. He uses the powers different than his dad. His training's different than his dad's. He's grown up differently and not always with his father. So he's got that background and that difference. And it's what I like about him. It's what I like about Damian. It's what I like about each of the Robins. You can have these characters who, on paper, okay, it's another Superman, but then when you really get down to it, what is it that makes him valid? Why should he be here? And why, when we're doing an episode, we're talking about two different versions of the Superboy concept, right? Why they're both equally valid. And I don't mean that to knock him into being Superboy. I really think Superboy is a way cool concept. So whatever these Superman archetypes are, Supergirl and things like that, you've got to have some interesting validity to them. And I think this issue just broadcasts why he is so different. I love that he's spent after using the powers.
Yeah.
It was like enough to take down Ultraman, but ultimately puts him in a situation where he's vulnerable and almost is put back into prison, in that volcano again. He's almost at that point. I thought that's where this was going. I'm like, oh no, now he's going to have to get out of this again. I did not see where this was going.
And let's just talk about it. They snapped Ultraman's neck.
Yes.
I was like, and I was funny because I was sitting there and I'm thinking, same thing along with you. When they start off this issue, I'm thinking this whole time we're going to have multiple issues of the fight and this and that. Was not even remotely thinking the death. And that was, again, just a great usage of what did I just read? What the heck? A Clark Kent, snapped his neck, but two, Clark Kent killed Ultraman. Ultraman is not just a throwaway villain. He is a person who's been around for many, many, many years. Mm-hmm. They just got rid of him. I'm like, wow, yeah, what the heck? And it's a brilliant on usage of it, where he's sitting there, he's like, I'll make your Lois suffer. No, you won't. Flip the page, crack. And that full page spread of Superman snapping Ultraman's neck. I was like, wow. That is something.
I can't wait to read more. I'm looking at him like, wait, how many issues is this thing? Because I'm really engaged. This is a great, great series so far. And if you're missing this for whatever reason, maybe you aren't, typically a John Kent fan or a John Kent reader, or just, it hasn't been your cup of tea before, do yourself a favor and give this one a shot, because you don't really need to know anything. It gives you the status quo right in issue 1, brings you up to speed on what's been going on Lararuz Planet, what's been going on with the identity going back, secret identities being a thing. They give you a nice primer on where he's at with his relationships with Mom and with his boyfriend, everything you need to know to kind of be accustomed to this book. And there is a great story of a serial killing Ultraman running around killing Superman with a twist. Really cool.
Some of the other stuff I loved about this, the final page, when Injustice Superman's like, you have your mother's eye.
Oh, that was so good.
And he's got the single tear going down his cheek. And again, it took me a second to remember, oh yeah, this is the one where Lois died when she was pregnant. That's what caused him to snap.
And it was his fault.
And it was his fault.
Well, not really, but he was used and manipulated to do it.
Yeah.
Which is the other twist. Because he didn't just crack because of the fact that she was killed. He cracked because they made him partially however you want. They used him as the smoking gun. The Joker did.
Well, he was the gun. Joker pulled the trigger.
Right.
Gun. He was actually the one that killed her. Well, killed them, because the baby as well. So it was. I'll tell you that I loved that final scene, because again, it did take me a minute to realize. Oh, okay. Ooh, yeah. So and it's neat because the story I was thinking it would be John versus Ultraman. No, it's not. We now have a side story of John versus Injustice Superman, because he did just kill somebody, and Supermen don't kill, so John's got to deal with that. But John also we've got President Superman and Red Tornado Lois trapped in the Phantom Zone. So John's got to figure a way to get them out of the Phantom Zone now.
Yeah.
So I love how this story, I was not even remotely thinking we'd have anything like that in this tale. So this is issue 2, brilliant swerve that I can honestly say didn't see coming, and has me thinking so much off page that I'm like, well, oh yeah, and then they got that. Oh, plus they got that, and and even early in this, John, left Lois a note, a message, and a crystal. Who knows what's on that message? Because that's going to play out eventually. I'm not sure how, but it will.
There's and here's the thing with the Injustice world and what's going on there. John's going to have to see that. What do you do when you go to a world that literally is flooded with injustice?
Yes.
It's whether you've played the Injustice games or not, it's irrelevant. It's an engaging world, and it's another really cool world in the multiverse that just happens to have a multimedia element to it. Right? There's been an animated movie. There's been the comic book that's had multiple series at this point. We've got 2 great games that have come out of it, and mobile games that have come out of it. So you can play this on your iPhone right now in a version of Injustice. There's been 2 of them that have been released. There's just a lot of different ways to access the Injustice world. And if you're not a gamer, you can ignore the gaming part. There's a rich story to be told there. But it's a dark world. And it's an example of what if. What if somebody could push Superman to kill? What would that do to the whole universe? It changes everything. There's pivotal moments throughout history, right? And it's one of the things I love about timey-wimey stuff. It's what I love about the multiverse, and it plays off of that. John's going to be thrust into that world. I really want to see that because he is just that kind of character that has grown. I like also in this, you mentioned something earlier about we've missed certain growth and development of him. I like that we're seeing it through flashbacks.
Yeah.
So we are getting those pieces filled in. This Ultraman bit, they filled in some key sequences there. It was cool to kind of live that way. I want to have that big picture. I want to know I want to know everything. And that's a sign of whether they are able to give you all of those details or not. It's a sign that you care about a character when you want to know. Right? In real time. I want to know all of the things that happened to this kid. What was his full aging like? What did that look like for him to get him to this maturity that he's at right now? I love where the character's at, and I can't wait for more. Yeah. Would you be happy? So it's an interesting thing with these characters nowadays, and because we're getting a mixture of, we're getting full series launches, we're getting mini series launches, where they're season based, a little bit more, like I said, like streaming services. Do you have a preference? I guess in the past for me, if something was launched into a miniseries, a long time ago I'm talking about, I always loved miniseries, but I always felt like they were side stories. Now I don't feel that. I feel like miniseries have a much more important role in the overall continuity. It's a very different era now in how miniseries are used. But what is your take on miniseries now?
Well, actually, we're very similar on it. They used to treat the miniseries as a side story. And I mean, a neat story. I'm like, oh, okay. Am I interested in it? Now, miniseries are continuity. And we saw with Poison Ivy how it can become an ongoing. So they're looking and they're treating miniseries differently, which has me treating them differently. This one, Adventures of Superman John Kent and the Superboy Man of Tomorrow, both 2 miniseries that I was 100% latching on immediately because I knew it was continuity. The Green Arrow miniseries, I'm latching onto that immediately because I know it's continuity. I know it's currently storied. If I know something's currently going on, I'm going to have more option. I'll have a more likelihood of reading it. It won't just be about, is this a cool John Kent story? Is this a cool Connor story? No, these are actually stories that are happening in the world, so I want to read those as well. So I like this handling of it, by the way, because one, when they lay it out as a miniseries, you're going to get a beginning, middle, and end of the story. And the creative knows they're doing a beginning, middle, and end. And if the sales do well enough and they say, hey, let's do another season or let's make this an ongoing, then that's awesome for them. But in my head, I see this as a really cool usage of some of these characters. instead of saying, hey, we're going to do an ongoing, and then if it starts dying off, okay, then, and then you're left with a quasi ending because they had to wrap things up. Whereas this one, they're thinking solely, I've got X issues to write. I'm going to create it. And then, that story arc, will have a full story in it. And then, they'll leave it open to continue on the story. So I like that. I like this format, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I am too. I think they're done for very specific purposes. And I want to be clear, with some of my comments earlier, it's not that I didn't like miniseries in the past. It was just kind of, I had this idea that, like, if it's a monthly, that's where you're going to get your main story, and other things are a side story. I'll use a great example. I was a big fan of Uncanny X-Men growing up. I read and loved the Magic series with Ileana and Storm and Kitty Pryde and Wolverine. I mean, they're examples of great miniseries, but I always took those as being side stories that would eventually have an impact, or they were telling a story that happened, like the Magic in particular was telling a story that happened in between events in a single issue of X-Men. I always knew that those were stories that I could read at any point in time. If I'm trying to stay up with what's going on, I need to read the main title, and I jump to those secondarily. This, I didn't get that vibe. And I like that. I like how they're using miniseries nowadays. Want to talk about Superboy?
Yes.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
Our next discussion is on Superboy Man of Tomorrow, Chapter 1. Writer is Kenny Porter, with art, color, and cover by Jahnoy Lindsay, with letters by Lucas Gattani, with a variant cover by Joe Quinones. 125 variant cover is Valdemar Rivas, R-I-V-A-S. 150th variant cover is David Talaski. The Superman variant cover by George Kambadais. Editor is Andrew Marino. Senior editor is Katie Kubert. And, of course, Superman was created by Cleveland's own Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Superboy created by Jerry Siegel. Supergirl based on characters created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. By special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. And apologies to horrible name butchering on that one.
This character is really important to me because with the death and return of Superman storyline, I really got into this character and really enjoyed his journey there. I will admit he's a character that financially I jumped on and off. And that's really the reason why. I want to be really clear. I always liked the character. I liked following him. But it was, when this was all going on, it was at a time in my life where, I was getting my career underway, things like that. And I always had comics in my life, but couldn't always follow all the books I wanted to. One of the things I really like about this story is it takes into account what would it be like if you lived this whole life where you grew older, you had a girlfriend, he was with Cassie and, and gave up his life and, did all these heroic things. He's come back multiple times, but then was brought back to a world that basically had erased him, from existence. And he came back at an age where he's back, younger. He hasn't, and all of his friends and people have moved on. Like they've got a different life going that he wasn't a part of. So he remembers everything. They remember him, but it's not like you've all of a sudden picked up where you've left off. It's more of there are certain people who remember him, certain people that don't. I like that it's Ma and Pa Kent that seem to really remember him the most. Yeah. But he's really an example of a fish out of water where he's almost been transported to, reborn into a world that is completely foreign to him. Trying to find your place there and trying to build a life for yourself is very challenging. I like that he remembers everything we remember as the reader because this is our guy, right? Yeah. But you see the unique challenge in the fact that he's back in that old a version of that old costume, which I always liked. I always liked that costume. I always liked the t-shirt and jeans too. But there's a reason because of his age right now. There's a reason for him to be in that costume, very similar to how Impulse is in his costume. And it's interesting. I actually like that he has all those memories because I think it adds an interesting plot twist to what this character is struggling with. And it's made him interesting and different and fun to follow. That's where it's really critical. It's what we were talking about when we were talking about John Kent. This book has to be different. If it's not, why are we doing it? And I'm glad that this one was the round robin winner, that, you know, ended up getting the series, because it's all in the writing and it's all in the compelling story that's here. And boy, I really am enjoying this first issue of exploration of him because of those pieces. It's what makes him unique that makes me want to read this. Otherwise, what you're giving me is a tiny Superman doing Superman things. That's not what you're doing here. You're giving me a kid who has lived a full life, who has a chance to live a new one, but where do you begin? And you don't have all the support pieces. You know, he's got Ma and Pa Kent, but he doesn't have the other support pieces that we're fortunate to have, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where it's interesting to follow him. I care. I actually really care about him in a very different way. This is a very different book than the one that we just got done talking about.
And it's funny you mentioned, you know, with Superboy, because, you know, when I started, you know, when the death of Superman, that was my thing that really pulled me into, I've got to read all of the different side stories. You know, and I picked up the death of Superman, and I just had to keep going, and had to get all the different other Superman, and his story came out. And I remember when he first came out, I was like, I'm making him a little bit of a brat. And then as they started him developing as a hero, he stopped being about the flashy and actually started being a true hero. And I was like, I really loved how they matured him within the storytelling, and actually taking him from this snot-nosed little punk that you want to smack to actually saying, yes, he is Superboy. He's earned that name. And I love the fact that how he first starts off calling himself Superman. So I'm not Superboy, I'm Superman. And then later on, it's like, no, I am Superboy. And he recognized just the significance of being Superboy. Recognized the significance of being the hero, and I loved just how that character did that. And then as he continues and he grew, and he drops the flashy outfit for the more that's the jeans and the shirt, and I was like, okay, I'm digging where this is all going, where it's coming from, and it was like just that great growth of that character, and I absolutely loved Connor. I was like, man, this guy's wonderful. And when, you know, it's one of those things when he went away, I was like, no. We can have more. And so now we're getting him back. And now I love the fact that they're like, he's lost in this world. And I'm like, yeah, he should be. I can see completely where it is, that the whole fish out of the water kind of thing. But is he needed? No one remembers him. No one knows who he is. And it's not even just an arrogance thing on his part. It is a personal reflection on, does the world need me? Do I need to do this? And I loved how this opening issue really addresses that. And then it's him trying to find a place in the world, which causes more problems for him. But something else that I absolutely loved on this, and it's why when I did the creative team, I had to apologize to the art team, because I love the look of this book. I love the usage of art for the little side stories. When I did my art read-through, I actually did 2 art read-throughs on this one, by the way, where all I did was just look at the images, because I loved little stuff I missed completely. You know, like the opening sequence, he catches the car. Okay, you know, your remnants back to the classic Superman where he catches the car and all that stuff. But if you look at his hand, you see that coffee he has, and you see the one starting to spill over. You know, and then he puts it down, and the other soups fly in, and that knocks it over the rest of the way. Later on, we see that was his coffee. The other 2 were from Ma and Pa. But here they're showing a little side piece of the actual coffee spilling over. They didn't need to do that because they do show it spilled over later in the page, but this little attention on the art detail was, you know, this something I absolutely loved about this book and this art usage.
The art uses is really good because it's a nice balance of feeling, you know, very current and today, while I think touching on the key points of what his arts look like, because his book, Superboy, back in the day, really had some terrific art to it. You know, I think it's really gives a nice nod to his book as far as, you know, the historical piece to it, while having its own style, if I'm making any sense. I really, really enjoy it. It's a beautiful book. It's something this Janoy Lindsay. It's Jahnoy. I know you already went over that earlier. The artist who did the art and color really just did a nice job with this. I think this is a very, very good-looking book and has like a fresh, unique flavor. I love in particular when we get into the Fortress of Solitude and we get to see some of those sequences where he's taking a look at what's going on across the world and trying to basically find a location for himself. I love the fact that the technical imagery and the way that special effects are working in there, they really look cool, right? Like you could almost see this happening on a TV show or an animated as being something where like, oh, that's neat. I mean, it was some really cool use of color and effect, technology to make this look really cool. The transporting from place to place, I thought was something that it just looked cool, which it's hard to make that look cool nowadays because we see it so often. And they did a really good job of making that awesome.
And again, also, I loved, and I 100% agree everything you just said, but I also really dig the look of Ma and Pa Kent and the look of the farm and just how that was. Again, you got to love, any book that has, we just gushed about having to have Lois in the story, which you do. But anytime you give me Ma and Pa Kent and you give me Ma and Pa Kent giving good advice to a super person, someone with the big red S on their chest, taking the advice, listening to these two people just give out this advice. And I was like, oh, that is just perfect. And again, I love their interaction with him and the visual interaction, but also the story being told how these are the only two people who really, who remembered him, who really knew who he was. They didn't forget him. They knew who he was, and they know who he is. And again, it's even just taking a page back when he's picking up the coffee and leaving. You can see the look on John and Kara's face, like something's not right here. Is he okay? And just little subtle things on the artwork, little things like that, just absolutely had me going. As I said, 2 art read-throughs, and I'll probably do another one just to enjoy this. This is an absolutely brilliant book, and not even just in the cool pop stuff, because there's a lot of neat little, oh, that's cool. Oh, I like that. I like. The special, with the special effects and just that, there is just that personalization, the emotion, just the general kind of like, I like how the little smirk he gets on his face sometimes. And I can 100% see it, and you kind of get that groove, and it does go back to that kid who, when he first hit the scene was a little bit on the smarmy side, a little bit impulsive. It's funny that his friend is Impulse because this, Connor is a little bit of the impulse as well. So I've loved how it really does, the art and story really do work well together with, giving us this information.
When he goes to that planet and you see what's going on there, and you've got people with, genetically who have been like inspired by the idea and the concept of Superman and the Dominators, and you're dealing with these just overwhelming numbers that he's fighting. I like the sense of you've got this kid who just won't give up. He keeps fighting. He keeps using his tactical telekinesis, tactile. And I've always loved, I butcher it because it's a tongue twister, but I really love the whole concept of that power set because of the fact that he is a clone of Superman and Luthor. His power set is going to be uniquely different, and he's able to do certain things that Superman can't do. It's all due to genetic research. There's something unique and different about him. I've always liked this idea, though, that there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because he's a clone of Superman, but has always wanted to validate himself as being the man, being the guy. As he's matured and grown, he's grown beyond that, developed his own identity, and earned his place, earned respect. But I always liked that difference, right? When you are kind of, people could be prone to call you almost an abomination because of the fact that, you are from stolen DNA. The introduction of the Cosmeteers is so... Did you read a decent amount of classic his Connor's Superboy series?
Yes.
Doesn't the Cosmeteers feel like it would belong in that book? I mean, I think I really loved that this was like, okay, this is an invention that really feels like that'd be something out of Connor's story and feels different. I like that we're adding some new toys to the arsenal with this miniseries. I thought it was something that I I should have expected from this, but I didn't, and it was cool.
Yeah, and it 100% fits who he is. And that's the thing I think about this book the most, that I've enjoyed the most about this, that this 100% feels like Connor to me. You know, and again, it feels like early Connor, not the later Connor, but it's still, I don't even want to say early Connor versus later Connor, because this is later Connor who is a little bit more mature and a little bit more experienced, but he still has a little bit of that early Connor kind of, you know, prove himself, a little bit of that bravado. You know, the opening stuff is like, the name's Superboy. These people are under my protection. Please tell me you have a problem with it. You know, and that right there that's a classic Connor, you know, smarmy kids trying to show the world, I'm Superman, you know, whereas this time he does call himself Superboy, not Superman, you know, but you do see him, and I love him in this fight sequences. They did a brilliant job showing the fight sequences, showing, you know, just he can give as well as he gets, you know, and, you know, he's laying out. And the thing I loved was he was holding back until all the civilians are around. Once the non-combatants are gone, I'm opening up now. I'm going to show you what I can really do. And I love just seeing, again, that, you know, that strategery that Connor was doing in there. Again, it is a little bit arrogant thinking, oh, okay, I'm just going to rope-a-dope these guys and then I'll take them down. But, you know, it does fit him. And I was very happy with this portrayal of him.
Let's talk about the Green Lantern story in the back. I'm wondering if what we're going to get here is, and it looks like we're going to get the other round robin finalists, is going to be what's going to be the backup stories. I'm glad we're getting to see these in print. You know, I mean, you know, as far as these previews actually in comic books, and because there's some clever concepts and ideas that are here. So we've got Green Lantern, The Light at the End of Forever, with everything that they've done with John Stewart. It was cool to see that they were kind of exploring this version of John Stewart and what was going on here. I wanted to see like more of this story. Like when it ended, I'm like, wait, what do you mean it's done? Like we're not getting like more? But I'm a fan of concepts that could have been, and pages of, a great example would be there was two intended versions of what happened with Jason Todd, right? I would love to see the full-blown issue of what could have been, you know? What if Jason Todd didn't die? I would love to see that full issue as it was intended. I love this kind of stuff. Even snippets of that we've gotten to see over the years, I've loved seeing because it was so close in the voting. This round robin stuff is fun. It's something different. It's a great way to get the fans involved in voting for potential stories that see the light of day. And no pun intended, as I'm talking about Green Lanterns. The artwork on this is fantastic. Like, I think this is a really good looking Green Lantern story. Tells of a different kind of John Stewart. Now this is the other John Stewart, right? The split off, right?
I believe so.
Is that how you're reading this?
That's how I read this. You know, but to be honest, this could even be somebody else that we don't know yet. You know, yeah. Again, I enjoyed that. Not knowing, but also knowing that it's John. Because you see him stand up. You see him be John Stewart. You know, he's not going to back down. Again, they did this great, you know, talk about, you know, this dialogue about how everyone just looks the other way. And they're going to feel guilty about it, you know, because, you know, but they'll be grateful that it wasn't them. It wasn't anybody they knew. Hey, they don't know this person. She's not one of us. Okay. And they're happy that it's her. And then they'll immediately feel guilty about having that happiness, that survivor's guilt is a really big thing that hits a lot of people. And it's a very realistic thing. And I love how they do talk about that. And then you get the one old guy standing there, not on my watch. And I love that, you know, again, and I want to know what happens to this guy. When does he green up? Come on, you know he's got to have the power in him. What happens here? I want to see that.
The coloring on this is fantastic. It's something that I really enjoy in Green Lantern books. We talked about this back in the day, you know, the heyday of Jeff Johns and Peter Tomasi and that whole crew when you know, Green Lantern was really doing, that's not a knock on anything that came afterwards, but it was like Green Lantern was like the flagship for a while there of DC and what was going on. It seemed like, at least. My gosh, was color and art really a big part of it. this is something, it's funny, like, how did this not get voted higher? I don't know how this voting works for this, but I'm glad they're putting these out, at least so more people can see them, because these pages are worthy of being seen. That's the important part about comics, is whether the story gets finished or not is not as important as the fact that, we get an opportunity to see the work that's been done. And I'm hoping this leads to compensation, additional compensation or appropriate compensation for the people that put these stories together, because it's really, I want to see the next one. And all I can say is I wanted to see more of this story.
Yes. And here, actually, let's give credit. Cy Spurrier is the writer. Marco Santucci is the artist. Michael Atiyeh, Atiyyeh, is the colorist. Darren Bennett is letterer. And Andrew Marino is the editor.
The vegetation alien was kind of an interesting one on that too, because you talk about bigotry and things like that. You find it anywhere. She's being singled out because she's undeclared vegetation, right? Which is, so oversimplifying an alien race, but she was basically going to be wiped out because of, the fact that that's just what they do. And it's a way to control and bully and that area. And it led to this John Stewart stepping in. Oh man. I just, that there's a next page was going to be him like greening up, right?
I think it has to be. And I was like, come on, man. Because I loved it. Again, the brilliant line was like, you're not the law. You're not even peacekeepers. I see you. You're just bullies with badges. And he's just taking a massive beating, and they're just like, stay in the dirt. Too stupid to lay down. Nope. He keeps just getting up. And even the voices that I'm assuming it's Hal or whoever it is telling him just stay down. He's like, stop fighting. He's like, the hell I will. This is the old man is not laying down. He's going to keep fighting. And the next page had to be John. It had to be a flash of green or something. Like, oh, come on. What happens next?
Now, would this be the John that had like that different power set?
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Or, I don't know. This John has a prosthetic leg.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just don't know. I want to know more about like what's going on. Like, here's the thing. They did everything that a good story should do, right? They made me scratch my head and try to figure out who it is. It made me very curious as far as what was going to happen on the next page. Like, I wanted more. Like, boy, talk about a study in like, how do you in a comic book start pulling people through the pages? This did everything right. Because I want more. I really want more.
Oh, big time. Feed me more, man.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's one of those two where I'm going to speculate on the answers to those questions. You will too. We might be on the same page. We might be on different pages, but look what we're doing right now. We're like debating through right now, not debating. I mean, as much as talking through who, like what this John is, which, is it the one that's split off in two? And is this the other one? And what does this look like? I don't know. I'm fascinated. They did a really good job of just hooking you into a story. That'll be fun. I think we've got to take a look at some of the later issues of this and just maybe touch base on how we felt about some of the other round robins that finalists that were in there. This round robin concept I really like. Every one that's been the winner I've enjoyed, and I like the contest when it's like sometimes I don't know that it's been started. But when I jump in, I start voting. Yeah. And sometimes it's like this one I was late to the dance on, but I did get to vote someone on it and really enjoyed it. Like, it's cool that this came to be from that concept. I just think DC's doing a nice job with things like this of trying unique and different ways to get fans involved in storytelling that's going on. You don't want to do everything like this, but this is a nice little something else that they're doing.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
Jim, before we jump into talking about some DC news, I want to shout out a couple of books real quick. Continuing to read Lararuz Planet, I've been reading that Revenge of the Gods crossing over with the Wonder Woman book. And it was really a good time because Wonder Woman's a book that I have gotten a little backlogged on. Not because of quality, it's just time. I haven't had a chance to get to it. And I love the character. So I'm like, oh, great, Revenge of the Gods. Let me jump on this. I'm really enjoying Lararuz Planet and the whole concept. This is really good because if you're a fan of Shazam, Mary Marvel, Wonder Woman, the gods in general, this is the story for you, because it takes from everything we've been reading about Wonder Woman, from her journey to the Norse gods to, the typical Greek gods that she's used to normally being associated with, to the wizard Shazam, to the gods associated with Billy Batson and everything that's going on. It's all been kind of put together where we've got a world that, and it's kind of reminiscent of our world today. There's a world right now that is not respecting the gods, is not fearful of the gods, is not, and the gods are dying out because of it, because they need that, there is that synergy of, they need the worship or the acknowledgement, or worship would be the right thing, of the people, in order that love from the people. And that's the piece that I think the gods aren't getting. Usually it comes from love, not fear, although they think that it's fear. It's an interesting philosophical debate between different groups of gods, and also these immortals like the Amazons that have lived forever that are like, hey, wait a minute, you're getting it wrong what you're going after. But there's a big status quo change in this, where Themyscira, that's traditionally been like this bubble, it's been protected from society, and the Amazons have been immortal, like a light switch that has been flicked off. They're on the radar now. You can get to you can get and book a trip to Themyscira if you'd like to right now, and actually arrive there. I don't recommend it because the welcoming party isn't always so great. Especially some of the surprise visitors that will greet you that aren't necessarily part of the traditional hotel crew. So I really, if you're going to go to Themyscira, make sure you're on an official tour and not just joyriding over there, because you may not make it back. But I really like that about this story, is the fact that there's multiple things going on here. There's an update as far as what's going on with Billy, and Billy's dealing with the after effects of the Lararuz Planet one-shot involving the gods. Mary is now coming on the scene, helping out at Themyscira, but then there's this duality of, there's the Amazons, then there's the world of man, and and the world of gods. So Diana has to make a decision who she's siding with, and it's not as simple as siding with the Amazons and the world of man against gods, because what ends up happening is the world of the gods, their survival is, the Amazons are dependent on the survival of the gods in order to maintain their status quo. It's something they aren't realizing in this whole scenario. So there's a lot of manipulation going on where what's the truth and what's not? Do the Amazons really need the gods in order to keep surviving? When Hera's running the show up there, doing it with the wizard Shazam being her second in command, her advisor, so to speak, or the hand of the queen, if you will. It's a very interesting and scary time, because the gods are not happy with how the people of Earth in general are reacting to them, and they're willing to wipe out anybody to make a statement, and to regain that which they, their glory days, their golden years. They realize at this point that their path hasn't been one. Diana we actually get to see a very strong version of Diana in this, where Diana sometimes is almost painted as being too perfect. I like when we get to see a Diana who is intrinsically a good person, who's trying her best to do the right thing. And like anybody else, she'll get it wrong sometimes. This is a scenario where she gets it wrong. She tries to play the gods at their own game, realizes partway through, because of the way that she handles it, she ends up being like them in how they're approaching it, and makes horrible mistake. Has to face it under the lasso of truth. Are you reading this right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Super cool, isn't it?
I'm nodding along with you because I'm like, I'm not going to interrupt him. He's on a roll. I'm 100% agreeing with you on this one.
And that stranger that's a part of this. Like, I don't know who this is, because I'm not one. I'm like an issue away from getting caught up. I'm not really like sure who that is yet, but I love the introduction of this character, because it's added this kind of mystery to it. And I'm a big fan of when you're you're introducing something, whether it's somebody we know or it's somebody we don't, you're introducing them in a really cool way into this story. There's just a lot to love about all of this. The nature of the lasso of truth is really kind of a good piece because the stranger rescues her, but there's a mystery to what the stranger's intentions are. And I love that when he rescues her at a certain point in time, he's holding the lasso. And because he was holding the lasso, she's like, well, you had to have been telling the truth. So we don't have time to go into this right now. So I'm just going to trust you because of the fact that you were holding the lasso at that time. And I like that was a part of it. Like little tiny details are just making me really into this. It's something that I'm really glad I'm jumping back into the world of Wonder Woman. Not just Wonder Woman, Shazam and everything. But I admit I was jumping into this because I'm like, man, I haven't read Wonder Woman in a while. I really want to get back into this world. And I'm using this as my gateway. Really in preparation for the fact that I'm enjoying the wrapping up of this run because we're going to get Tom King on the book soon. And boy, the creative team right now is doing a really nice job, both in Lararuz Planet and the creative team on Wonder Woman, because you got both creative teams involved in this. They're doing a real good job of delivering the story. This is really good fun.
Oh, big time, big time. And again, when you have two different teams, two different stories giving you the same groove and the same vibe, and you're like, yes, I 100% not jarring. And it was funny, everything you were saying about Diana, I was nodding my head along with you because her flawed, but it flawed out of good intentions. And that is, to me, a great usage of the character and something I'm just echoing some of the stuff you just said. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I loved how this is playing out.
Now, you're touching on something that's really important, though, and building off of that is the idea of intentions. Good intentions are really what's driving it. And sometimes we make mistakes with the best of intentions. And it's not that Diana was intentionally doing something wrong. She's trying to skirt some dangerous lines and being manipulated by the gods. Hera in particular. Hera's horrid to her. Diana's used to making bargains with the gods and with the intention, and she even says it, I'm going to stab you in the, I was basically going to stab you in the back anyway. That's the truth here. It's like I was playing your game. And I liked that. I liked that honesty. And she's realizing that was the wrong approach. I really, really enjoyed this because of just what a great story it was. It was not at all what I was expecting from this. And I'm into this whole Lararuz Planet thing because I didn't realize what an impact the Lararuz Planet mini and all of its tie-ins were going to have on the larger universe. I didn't realize this was going to literally be, like when they say it rained, it really did rain.
Yes.
And the rains haven't really stopped having an effect on the overall DC universe. And I like it. I like the changes. It's an event that's still going on and still having an impact. It's drawn me back into a world that I really love in the world of Wonder Woman, because I always loved this character. I needed a gateway to be pulled back into it, and this is doing it. I mean, this crossover is super cool. So let's talk some DC news, and I want to thank the Facebook team for everything that they're doing to curate some of this. Sad news that Al Jaffe, the iconic Mad Magazine fold-in artist, dies at 102. I'm assuming, like me, did I read every issue of Mad Magazine? No. But oh my gosh, Mad Magazine was a staple growing up. I grew up in the 70s, you grew up in the 70s, 80s. Mad Magazine was a thing. I'm assuming it was a part of your life in some capacity, whether you got it yourself or not. Mad was something you were getting issues regularly yourself, or you were encountering somebody that has it. Was that your experience too?
Oh, big time. Yeah, we either us, Angelo, growing up, he would get them and we would all read it and this and that. And the fold-in art always was, because we didn't want to actually crease the cover. So you're kind of like, oh, what's it look like? And I remember these things. And it's funny, the image that's there, on the page, the one fold-in, as you're looking at it on the right-hand side, if I'm not mistaken, if you fold that in, it turns into a face smoking a cigarette.
Oh, I think you're right.
I think that's that one, because I remember that one.
But incredibly talented. And he died. Wait, here's the thing. Life goals, 102 he died at.
Yeah.
I mean, that's love the fact that he lived such a long life. Just an icon. I mean, whether you've read magazine, you're listening to this, and maybe Mad Magazine wasn't a part of your life, or you're younger than us, and it just it was the later years when Mad wasn't as relevant as it is now, as it was when we grew up. This is somebody who, if you yourself didn't read it, you are currently enjoying comics or enjoying work from people who were influenced by people like Al Jaffe. And that was a sad one because, oh my gosh, I vividly remember his work. The Marvels teaser trailer. I've got to say, the MCU right now I'm very high on because my wife has all of a sudden gotten very into it, which she I guess just really was not into movies for a while. I'm saying the theater experience. So I was going to a lot of these things alone, which I don't mind, going to midnight shows and stuff like that myself, but she's gotten very into this stuff. Like we just watched this weekend Guardians of the Galaxy, to your point of the balance of humor and strong storytelling and stuff like that. So we were watching this teaser trailer and she's really intrigued by this, but she hasn't watched the Disney Plus show with Miss Marvel or seen the first Captain Marvel movie. So like we're starting to try and make our way through in anticipation. I really like the fact that Marvel, as a company, has taken some risks and branched out to some of the lesser-known characters as they've been expanding out their MCU line. Are they all, like, nailing it out of the park? No, not necessarily. Like, Eternals I enjoyed because I didn't know a whole lot about them, but I know that one was kind of really had some very mixed reactions as far as the audience goers, which I was kind of sad about because I had always been intrigued to learn about the Eternals and learned a lot more about them from the movie because they were not a group that I read a lot of in comics, and the movie got me interested in learning more about the characters. But I give the studio credit for experimenting with some of their lesser known characters and getting them out either on the small screen or on the big screen so we can see them. Do you get excited for that kind of stuff? I mean, it's like there's a lot of superhero content that's out there now. It's as we've shouted out on the show many times, it's a nice problem to have. Where do you fall when it's the more well-known characters versus the lesser-known characters? Like, what is that like for you? We've seen it because we've seen it in DC and Marvel, so I don't want to make this just a Marvel thing. Like, for example, Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, things like that are lesser known to the overall audience base. Where do those things fall versus Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman for you? Do you get excited for those in the same level, or is that different?
Yes and no.
Okay,
so when it first hits, I get excited for it. And as it becomes more and more, I start losing the excitement. Like with Blue Beetle, for example. That first hit, I was like, yes, this is awesome. Because, again, he's an unknown character, and I love when I see these unknowns actually getting their screen time when it's not one of the big three. When Captain Marvel first came out, I was like, oh, that's cool that they're doing Captain Marvel. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't see any of these movies. I haven't seen any movies, and I haven't even seen this new trailer because as they're more and more, it loses my energy, it loses my draw. It loses my attention span to it. Now, when I'm dealing with the Batman, Superman, even some of the Spider-Man stuff and whatnot, the big names, the more they come out, the more I'm watching those. The more I'm seeing because I'm like, I got to see, and what else they got? What else they got? Those do pull me in. Now, Suicide Squad, because it was DC, I was watching everything. But if even versions on the Marvel side, I would see the first one, but I wouldn't see the others. I'd see that initial pop, and that'd be, oh, okay, cool, they're doing that character, that's neat. But it wouldn't keep me in. But a Iron Man movie, I probably would watch all the trailers. Or a Captain America, I'd watch all the trailers. Spidey, I'm like, hey, let me see what they're doing with Spidey. But for me, the unknown character. Now, granted, if that first trailer has something awesome in it, it's going to keep me going. Like the Blue Beetle one, I'm definitely seeing the next time the next trailer comes out, I'm 100% seeing that because I was very excited for that. And if that one's just the same old, if it keeps doing the same, then it loses my interest. So give me some. But again, I also am one of those guys who hates when they give away too much in a trailer.
So one of my buddies, my buddy Jim, another Jim, he has been kind of lukewarm on some of the later Marvel movies because of the fact that, he wants the tried and true classic characters. He, hasn't been into as many of the comic book experimental characters that have been going on to screen these days, but is super excited for Blue Beetle. And was hoping like Booster Gold would appear and things like that. Even though it's the newer Blue Beetle, he loves Cobra Kai. Yeah. So the fact that we're getting the lead actor from Cobra Kai in there is, that's a draw for him. I'm hoping that movie does gangbusters. But I can see how I think like any film, I think it's important for comic book movies to take chances on, but I mean calculated chances on using some of their lesser known characters, but doing them really well, having a purpose behind it, having a story you want to tell, and taking that chance. This is a strange time to roll out films and take superhero movies out of it. But, I'm going to go back to Shazam. Shazam and the Fury of the Gods, I thought was just such a great movie. And I'm really disappointed at how it did. And there's so many factors that weigh on the success of a film nowadays that go beyond the quality of the film, even, I think. Some films are doomed before they even hit the box office because of the fact that a certain event, a certain choice, a certain something will set off a crowd and they will tear it to shreds. And that's not something exclusive to comics. It happens to a lot of movies. I also think we're, again, and I don't want to be a broken record with this, we're also in the murky waters of trying to navigate what do people want to draw them to the theaters nowadays when we've got so much content available on streaming. It's it's just a very different model out there as far as accessing media and what that looks like. A crowd is very segmented as far as what they will see in the theater and what will draw them out of their house to go see something in the theater and what they will watch at home when they've already got so much choice at home to try and keep up with. There's a lot of competition out there. It's an interesting time. And I love that the team's putting this stuff up there. Some of this stuff you really got to go to a Facebook group, and when you see the link in our show notes, please go and see it. But there is a really cool comic panel where it's a Scooby-Doo Batman mystery where they pull the helmet off and it's the Joker. It's underneath, and they're talking about they should have known it was him. He did a stand-up routine for Gotham's Got Talent years ago, and it was appalling. And he's like, "Lies, it killed. I should have won." And I love the context of it killed too, which is so the Joker. Were you a fan of The Rocketeer at all? Did you see that movie?
I liked that movie, and I wish they would have done more of the Rocketeer movies.
I never read the original classics, but I just got recently. It was one of the things, every so often on Amazon, something will pop up as a suggestion for you, and they had a hardcover collection of them. I just got it. I haven't had. It's like a remastered hardcover collection of the original Rocketeer stories. So I grabbed those. I'm looking forward to reading them. I think I read one Rocketeer miniseries, but wasn't the original. It was one that came out around the time of the film, if that makes sense. But the film was really my first introduction to the character. I knew of the character before then, but had never read the character. So it was neat. It came out at a time where it looked real pulpy. It had a really good feel to it. I liked that film a great deal. So I'm into the character. So I'm into the comics right now, reading some of the classics. I love these, and Jared's shouting this out, the new sequel series, Harley Quinn, Black and White and Redder. Did you like the previous one?
I actually didn't read it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, seek it out. It's really, really good. It's just similar to Batman Black and White, where they're just really good quality stories. The only difference with this is they have a third color. But it's very obviously they're high quality talent that have some really unique Harley Quinn stories that they're telling. So every story's different. So the nice part is if there's one that you hit where you're like, okay, that one didn't hit the feels as high as the last one, that the next story is going to be a completely different creative team that's doing something experimental. I just love the experimental nature of it, and it's fun. I'm glad. Here's the thing. The sequel means that people are very, very into this particular thing. It's cool.
You're not the first Smurf that tried to bring me back to the village, Stan.
Yeah.
The skull's not the Smurf. I know, Brainy. Don't lose your Smurf. Dude, I'm laughing my head off with this one. And you got to see the image to know what we're talking about with the little skulls.
And Mystique, which was super cool.
It is absolutely perfect.
They have a really cool cast for Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
It's going to be Sean Gunn, Frank Grillo, Maria Baklova, Indira Varma, Zoe Chow, Alan Tudyk, David Harbour, Steve Agee. I mean, there's really a nice cast there. I love Eric Frankenstein's going to be in this. David Harbour is Eric Frankenstein. Sign me up. But I love that we're getting Rick Flag. And I'm anxious for this. This is cool. Creature Commandos as a animated makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, it works well.
The thing I'm liking now is, and this is really an important thing for them to be doing, gradually just keep giving, now that you've made these releases, what you've got to do is keep us knowing this is going forward. Because we've had so much focus on canceling this, canceling that. This isn't going to be around. Now it's give us little teases, but you got to spread it out. This is what they're doing right now. Like we're not getting, I don't feel like I'm getting over inundated. I feel like they're spreading it out a little bit more and giving us information as we should know it versus information for the sake of let's throw stuff out there constantly. It's pretty important to balance this out a bit with what they're doing. The Penguin, I am super excited. Is this something that's on your radar?
Definitely on my radar. When they first talked about it, said it's coming. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then again, little teasers like this. This is the kind of stuff I like. I like this. Now again, I don't know how far out are we on when is the show airing? Do you remember? Do you know?
I don't know when it's airing. Does it say even in that? There's an in-production teaser, but it's coming in 2024. Okay. So they don't have an actual date yet, but it's coming in 2024. I watched the teaser, but I didn't see anything about a date. But that sounds about right when you think about the need for production off of that one.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's a cool article up to it's at Comics Beat where there's a link to. It's about Rachel Pollack, who we had announced on a previous episode had passed away recently at 77, known for her Doom Patrol run. It's a really cool article that tells a little bit about her history, a little bit about her politics, a little about how all that played into her comic book work. I just think it's really cool for people that are interested in the behind-the-scenes stuff. Definitely seek that out and appreciate the guys posting that. Night Terrors event, the horror event. This does excite me. So July 2023, we're getting the cover artwork that we're seeing here on this. I'm assuming that's what this is. It is like suitably creepy and like very, very experiment. It's like everything I like about cool cover artwork is what I'm seeing from this. I didn't know this was a thing. So this is coming in July. I'm excited for this. What about like you and I know are a little different in our interest in horror, shall we say? This for me is right up my alley.
Well, and here's the thing. Normally I would say it's not up my alley, but I have been dabbling more in the horror comics, because we're seeing some great stuff out there. But I've got these creators that I love, and I'm seeing their work, and I'm like, so I'm actually very curious about this. This series is on my radar. 100% going to be picking this up and reading this, and I'm very curious to see how much. Again, I'm understanding more of the horror genre of its usage in telling the story. Whereas before, I used to have a very limited scope on belief, and I was like, no, I'm not a horror comic guy. No, thank you. Now, it's as you get older, you start reading different stories. So I'm looking forward to this. I want to see this.
Yeah, I do too. The artwork in particular has me drawn into this one because, I mean, there's a cool issue with Punchline in there. The Night Terrors #2 has a cool homage cover to Death in the Family. I mean, there's really cool stuff that's going on here. Some cool Poison Ivy stuff that's in here. I mean, this is everything that I'm looking for. Wow. Right now, I'm very high on what DC's doing with their production output in comics. There's something that I'm really looking into. Have you heard about this Distillery, this new comic book company that's coming out, the new publisher? So there's a new publisher that's coming out, and it's for creative-owned books. And it's got a different business model that's looking to really kind of improve how creators are paid as with partnerships. But there's some big names that are involved. And they've got some digital collectibles that are going on. There's Frank Miller has his own company out now called Frank Miller Presents, which actually, it's funny. I was just at that Fan Expo Cleveland, and I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot that Frank Miller Presents was a thing. Jim Calafiore is going to be doing the artwork on one of the upcoming one-shots that like ties into one of their books. So I started reading it, and it's really good. But that one, I don't think it's digital at all, like Frank Miller Presents. I think it's all paper, because I've collected those, and I've actually got them on my DCBS pull list, the Frank Miller Presents books, for that purpose. This one is... they're looking to create like some digital collectibles, different things like that. I'm optimistic on this one that we've got a company that, especially with the talent that's involved behind the scenes on this one, that this one could be a surprise, a sleeper surprise. It is tough to start a comic company nowadays. I want them to be successful because obviously more choice that's out there says a lot about the health of the industry. I'm like anything, I'm worried about it because of the fact that this is an industry right now that it's struggling, at the moment when new product comes on. When I say new product, I mean new publishers that are trying to do it. It's tough to break into the comic book world right now and to get notice with a large enough audience to be sustainable. But the creative talent that's involved there really has me optional. So it's called Distillery. And it takes out all the vowels. It's DSTLRY, I believe is what it's called. DSTLRY. And it's really focused on, we often talk on the podcast about we don't always understand how creators are paid when it comes to, I will say, I don't understand how creators are paid when it comes to paper comics versus digital comics versus these services like we've got with Marvel and DC, what that looks like for a creator, because it's really important for creative talent to be able to make a viable living in comics, no matter what their role is, whether they're a penciler, an inker, a writer, colorist, letterer, editors. Everyone needs to be able to make money, because if you want top quality talent needs to be able to make this as a living. And needs to be able to devote the time to deliver the kind of quality that we, over the years, have become accustomed to in comics, and ultimately lead to these movies and TV shows and things like that, games, everything. I mean, it's an incredible source of content nowadays. And I don't think there's this burnout is out there. I don't think that's really a thing. I think there's a snarky internet crowd that is dangerous. I really do. I think that's what it is, and I'm going to say that. What the reality is, we're getting so much content. What you're going to have when you have that much content is like any other genre, right? Hits and misses, right? Sometimes baffling hits and misses. Some of my favorite movies over in my lifetime, some of them, the popcorn flicks that I most love to rewatch over and over again, were not movies that necessarily had a universal mass appeal, So that happens at times. There's sometimes baffling films that you're like, why didn't that one make it? That's what's happening right now. Attributing that to fatigue is a little bit nuts, just in the sense that if you're watching only superhero movies and you're getting fatigued because you're only watching superhero movies, here's a solution to that. Watch some other stuff. I mean, sit down, think about that. There's a lot available right now. Like, on what planet, if you're like, oh man, another superhero movie, what am I going to do? How are you having that problem? So I don't buy into this superhero fatigue thing. What I'm buying into is there's a lot of competition out there. Some movies are going to be hits and some movies are going to be misses. Sometimes it's marketing. Sometimes it's, there's a lot of things that can contribute to that. But, I think if you put out quality hit after quality hit after quality hit, people are going to come to it. I think sometimes it's hard to predict what's going to draw a mass audience versus a niche crowd. And that's part, like you and we can be considered a niche audience. I will enjoy certain things that the general public will not enjoy. And I'll be baffled that they didn't. because of the fact that it usually is quality, but it's quality that's geared towards me and doesn't necessarily hit people I work with, for example, who aren't as into this as I am. So I don't think that's fatigue. It's more of you take risks with any film you put out, right? Same can be said for the spy genre. The same can be said for comedy. The same can be said for horror. Not every horror movie is a home run hit, right? But boy, when they are, everybody's talking about them. So that's what's going on right now with this. It's interesting. This Alex Ross Kingdom Come with the Easter eggs of classic creators is super cool.
Dude, that is awesome. I love this. And I wish it was funny because I wish I knew, well, obviously I know who all these people are, but I wish I would have been able to recognize that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I always, sometimes when I see, I've started doing that with some of the crowd work, looking and see if I see people, that I can recognize, on modern books. And sometimes I think I'm like, I wonder if that's so-and-so. I wonder if that's so-and-so. And because you see like these background characters that are so clearly defined, and you're like, I wonder if that's based on somebody. So this cover is absolutely brilliant. I love this.
One of the things, actually, Everett Starr mentioned down there, please put this Kingdom Come Superman in something.
Yes.
That would be the perfect thing for Henry Cavill.
Oh, God, yes.
When you think about how the audience was kind of divided over his Superman and some of the darker tones of it, wouldn't this Kingdom Come be the perfect way to say, okay, let's take it there then. This is where this character went. Let's have him interact with this newer Superman eventually down the road. There's an opportunity to do that. I think that would be a very cool way to use him as an actor to tell a Kingdom Come like story. And there's no law that says they can't work with him. I think they're trying their best to not burn bridges with people as they're heading in these new directions. And I appreciate that thought process. It's hard when you're heading in a new direction. You've got to let actors go and maybe not, you tease certain things and they don't work out because of the direction you're going in. But I hope that they continue to work hard to keep doors open for future storytelling opportunities, because look where the Marvel MCU has gone, right? There's always opportunities to tell a good story that would bring somebody back in a way that you're not expecting. The Flash, the more I'm hearing about it, like I saw the McFarlane Toys pre-order for it. Dude, I can't tell you the last time for a film that I went and jumped at a bundle for all the statues and toys that are relating to it. And I'm like sitting here like, okay, it's $475 for that pre-order bundle. Like, what am I doing? I'm looking at statues and action figures and vehicles. And because they're 89 Batman related and Flash related for this film, I'm like, this film has got me this excited that I'm like sitting here and actually considering this pre-order. Whether I get it or not, and I'm still up in the air on that. I'm looking at a pre-order. This isn't, and for people that are action figures fans out there and things like that, please don't take that as an insult to you. I casually buy figures. I like them. I really enjoy them. I got Cal Kestis from the latest Star Wars game. I just got the Black Series version of that character just because, but that's what I do. I like pick and choose, like usually singletons or, maybe like a series of 3 characters or something like that to add for display purposes. Where there's people out there listening to this that are like, no, dude, I'm a diehard collector and I've got like this super cool collection. I admire those. I think that's cool. That's not me though. It's important to know the distinction because diehard toy collectors going to be sitting here like, dude, of course I pre-ordered that. Yes. The point is though, I'm not the person that would normally pre-order that. I'm looking at it. Stuff looks cool. We are in like an awesome era of merch. Have you seen this yet? Have you seen the stuff that McFarlane Toys is doing around that Flash film?
No, I have not seen any of this. And there's a reason I haven't seen any of this.
I hate to say this. You really should look. The stuff looks really cool. And you can pre-order now in different... It doesn't have to be the bundle. They like, for $39.99, they have like these 12-inch like resin statues. Or they're 12-inch statues. I don't know if they're resin ones. But of like Batman Unmasked. And then Batman, the 89 Batman, like from that film of the Flash. There's, you can get the action figures individually. You don't have to spend like $475. You can like literally for $40, you can walk out with something cool. They have the vehicles. If you're a vehicle collector, I mean, they have the Batwing, the Batmobile, stuff like that. I mean, really cool stuff. I mean, so for people listening out there, if you're remotely interested in any of that for display purposes or because you're a collector, do yourself a favor and look for the pre-orders, because I make the mistake sometimes of not pre-ordering something that I want. Then I like sit there and look at it and I'll go, oh man, it's out and I really want it. And then I pay too much for it because it's really hard to get. So if you are a diehard collector, this is more of a PSA, do that bundle, because I'm sure you're going to pay like 3 times that if you can't find that stuff. They have this Park London Superman collection. This looks really good. I did buy some of that Reebok stuff. Remember we talked about that?
You did? Cool.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, the fit's really good. Like you'll hit stuff sometimes where it the sweatshirts in particular. Sometimes what I don't like with sweatshirts is they wind up being like you get a size and then there's too much sweatshirt, if that makes sense. These have they're fitted like in the right way. Like they're actually true to size. So, if you're a 2X, it's a 2X. If you're an extra large, it's an extra large. Sometimes you wind up with the sleeves are just super long or something like that. They're really well fitted. I'm looking at this stuff though, man, the designs are really sweet. Like that light blue Superman shirt, looks really, really, I love t-shirts. I wear them around the house all the time. I like that black long sleeve Superman shirt that's in there. That's up my alley. I'm going to have to check this, but it's an 85th anniversary Superman collection from Park London. And it's some unique stuff. It doesn't look like other things that are out there. That's what I'm usually drawn to. I'm drawn to merch, but they have a framed poster print that looks really wicked cool. There's a lot of merch there. And it's not just what's in the preview. There's a Superman and Lex Luthor shirt, which you would be really into.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's stuff that's worth checking this out. There's 13 products on their 80th anniversary collection that I'm looking at right now. And there's a lot to love about what they're putting out there. But I love seeing more companies that are diving into DC. There's something to what's going on. So the Full Circle event for Zack Snyder's coming in April. And they're releasing a t-shirt drawn by Jim Lee, with proceeds going to the charity. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to go to the Full Circle event, but I'm going to take a look and see if I can get that t-shirt because I loved that movie series. I like when you can get some kind of merch and it goes to charity, if that makes sense. I like there's the additional piece of, all right, I got this, and it's a collectible. I'm actually going to wear it and stuff, but knowing that my money went towards something. I wear a lot of geek shirts, during the weekends and stuff like that, or when I come home from work. I use them for working out. I use them for lounging around the house and stuff like that. So t-shirts are kind of a big thing that I collect. I think it's kind of a way when I'm escaping from work and life in general, it's kind of fun to have so much geek culture. As I'm sitting here right now, I have this really cool Doctor Who t-shirt on right now. I feel like it's kind of a way to express your fandom. Like when you're at home, like when I'm mowing the lawn, I'm like a billboard for fandom. It's like if my neighbors have any question on whether or not I'm a geek, it's been answered just watching me do yard work.
Well, with me working from home full 100%, my comic t-shirts are my work clothes.
Yeah.
I actually wear those, and sometimes we'll have meetings with, and where we got to turn on the cameras. So here's Jim rocking a Superman shirt, or currently wearing the Flash, and people will see that, and it's no one even remotely bats an eye at it now because everybody knows who I am. But I've started wearing them out when Dad and I will go out for, breakfast on the weekends. We always have on the weekends, we get up, we got a rotation of restaurants we go to. And when it first started going on, I always used to, I wouldn't wear a comic t-shirt. Now I'm like, no problem. It's, I let the geek flag fly now more. And I think it's, as I've gotten older, I think less of what people think about me based on my appearance. I'm like, I don't care. I'm wearing what I want to wear.
It's funny, you mentioned as you've gotten older that you worry less or care less about that. I'm the same way. I've mentioned on previous podcasts where, I had a point in my life where, you've known me a long time. I don't know if you had any clue that, I had a lot of self-loathing when I was younger. You may not have known. I think I masked it well. But as I got into my 40s, I started realizing hey, I wasn't aware that I had it, but you hit that point where you're like, I kind of like myself now. I think that was very freeing and just kind of like letting my geek flag go, and that type of thing. And not, to your point, not really caring what people thought, more caring about what makes me happy. I'm fortunate enough that, I'm married to a wife who loves me for me, which is really important, but I've also got friends that I'm friends with because of who I am. You know what I mean? You're a case in point, you. And I think it's fun nowadays, the fact that I think there's also such a large community. And I think that's where we talk a lot of times about the negativity of the internet. Let's talk about the positive part of it. Podcasting, internet communities, things like that. We're all connected. Those of you that listen to this, those of you that post in the Facebook group, those of you that, we've never met before, maybe you're we're a hit and run podcast for you. We love you. We're glad you're here. There's just a large community of people now that we're all here because we enjoy talking about this stuff and we enjoy sharing this kind of stuff together. Going to conventions nowadays, like Fan Expo was super cool. It was in our backyard. And it was nice to see so many people from similar types of fandom interests that were there, like showcasing their geek flag. It was really cool. So you're right. It's kind of a fun era for that. And it's, it's cool that you're in that place. Mark Millar is returning to Superman. Did you read you've read Red Son, right?
Yes, I did.
And I was a big fan of his work with Grant Morrison at DC. Like the Flash run I thought was really, really cool that he did. I'm glad that he's returning. I'm interested to see what kind of Superman story he's doing. I think it just adds more choice to him. Interesting sort of return. So
yeah, again, I'm always looking forward to. Well, one, it's weird. I'm always looking forward to new writers coming in, new changing, thing like that. Because you know me and Superman. He's my guy. I want to see other people do him, but I'm so happy with the teams that are out there. I don't know. It's one of those things like I don't kind of want anybody to leave. Is he doing a new book, or is he taking over? What the deal here?
He's got a new Superman series in the works, so it doesn't look like it's in place of one that's there. So he has plans for an all-new Superman series.
Okay, cool. We're good.
So, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't want him bumping anything that's currently there, but I would love more. Here's the thing that's hard, too. We don't know anything about it yet, right? So this is one of those, I'm tentatively excited. I'll be more excited when I know a little bit more. Like, here's the thing. This is where previews are helpful. A little blurb telling me more about the story will help me know how excited I am. But Red Sun in and of itself has me excited, though.
Yeah, and again, and it's funny, Jared does make the point about, and I liked what he said, because what he's talking about how with what he's done in the past, are they going to try to make it more edgy and whatnot? And again, I can see what he's saying. Like Wanted, I loved Wanted. I love the comic. That was absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't want Superman in that kind of groove. I wouldn't want him having that, that more, some of the more edgier material that they did and wanted. I wouldn't want that in Superman. I want Superman to have a solid story. I don't want it just to be fluff piece or just Superman flies in and punches a big robot. I want depth and I want detail and I want something of substance that the big guy is dealing with. But again, it is one of those weird things where I am protective. Mark Millar is a great writer, so I'm okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But there is in the back of my head going, what are we going to get? Are we going to get a more edgy, or are we going to get a really cool Superman?
Here's what I don't think we're going to get, though. And I get the concern and all that, but here's the thing. Like Wanted, it's hard to compare that to... Right. It wasn't meant to be Superman. Yes. You know what I mean? So, but I get that, though, if you're like, that isn't my cup of tea. Cool. I mean, that's okay. This is where I think a blurb would be helpful. But I think as a writer, if you take a look at his work, he's had a lot of work. And he's had some really cool DC Comics work. The Flash and Superman Red Son in particular were books that I enjoyed. Now, you may be listening to this and going, well, I didn't like either of those. Okay, then you're not as excited as I am. I'm excited because of those. His work with Grant Morrison on The Flash, I thought was outstanding. I really enjoyed it. And I loved Red Son. So if we're going to get something along those veins, I'm all in. I think that's really cool. I want to know more. I feel like we don't know at this point. So I feel like Jared's points are valid because we don't know. And when you don't know, it's really hard to, know, is it going to be dark and edgy? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? It's hard to know. And Superman's one of those characters where I'm with you. I'm really loving the direction of Superman right now. But I wouldn't mind an Elseworlds Superman story. I wouldn't mind a Black Label Superman story by Mark Millar. I don't know what he's doing. I want to see what this is. This could be fun. I hope it is. So, interesting point. Arkham Barbie. I want to play that game.
Yeah.
Like, that looks like it should be a game, and I want to play it. Alex Ross's Batman and Boba Fett. I don't know who commissioned that. It says who wins. We do? I'll give you the answer for that one, because that looks gorgeous. Am I right? Doesn't that look stunning?
Yeah, that's absolutely. Whoever came up with saying, "Hey, can we get a Batman versus Boba Fett image?" You just won. That's absolutely outstanding.
I wouldn't
I
have
love this.
thought to ask for that. That is gorgeous.
Yeah, I think the most unique thing I ever asked for was Hawkman versus Nightwing. Or as I said it, I want an image of Nightwing, beating up Hawkman.
And again, it was Elseworlds. It was Elseworlds. You did deliberately stick it to me, too.
Yes, I did.
That was cool.
And it was funny. At first, he didn't want to do it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Sean is a huge, it was Jamal Igle, by the way. I forgot to mention that. It was right after he had done his whole Nightwing run and all that stuff. And he's like, what? I'm like, oh, Sean's a huge Hawkman fan. He goes, oh, yeah, we're in on this.
Yeah. That's cool. James Gunn's, the script, is being worked on actively for Superman Legacy. I'm excited. This is really interesting. Kind of see this. They've got to be careful, and where they've got to be careful is how they're delivering news. I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah, you know what? I am. I didn't want the end of the current Superman universe to end. Mm-hmm. I didn't want them to reboot it. I didn't want that, but in the end, you give me a good Superman story, I'm in. And James Gunn has done some really great stuff that I've really enjoyed.
Yes.
He's one of those guys that he is a comic book fan as well as a creator.
Yep.
And when you have somebody who's like, this isn't just a paycheck to me, this is something that I want to be a part of, this is something significant. He's, putting his stamp on the writing, directing, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to complain about getting this story. In my head, part of my heart, I still want, some of Henry Cavill stuff. But again, I'm not going to complain about this. One, I haven't seen anything, but two, I know we've got a creator that actually cares about the property. This isn't just a paycheck. So I'm like, I'm okay with waiting to see what happens. I am excited to see where it goes. I'm curious to see what they do with it. And there's a lot of neat stuff that's going to play out of this, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I am too. And let me explain my concern with this. And I'm probably being unfair, so I just want to say that. As I've mentioned on the show, I'm a big gamer. And I think sometimes what ends up happening with games in particular is there's very early announcements, and they were kind of forced with, I think, this DCU to start making some announcements and pushing them through. So what ended up happens in the gaming world is sometimes they announce things too early, and then you're forced to kind of do news updates along the way, and then things get pushed, deadlines get pushed down further, and and here's the thing, with games, you want them to turn out perfectly. I think there's a lot of marriage to film with that, right? I want this released when it's ready. I want the script done when it's ready to go. I have a ton of confidence in James Gunn. We were just watching Guardians last night and just really had a good old time. It had been so long since I'd seen the first Guardians that it really is a terrific film. So, and there was so much of it I forgot. It's funny to say that, I've seen that film, this is the fourth time I viewed it. But it's been a while since I've had another viewing of it. A lot of my previous viewings were more, I think the last time I viewed it was when Volume 2 came out. So I was really excited to see it again, and I'm obviously ramping up for Volume 3. I have a ton of confidence in this creator to give me a Superman story that I'm really going to enjoy. I'm very protective, I think, of wanting not only the quality, but I want a good film to do well. I feel bad, not bad for them. I'm worried for them because we've got a weird internet nowadays where the stupidest things set people off. And I'm not talking about the comic community or anything like that. I'm just talking about the internet in general. And it can derail something that is going to be awesome. I'm protective of this because here's what I want. I want this to be Iron Man in the sense that the first Iron Man kicked off something special, right? I'm not saying that this has to be the MCU all over again. I'm not looking for that, but I want it to be that thing where it doesn't feel like something that was done before. It feels like a start of something new, something fresh, something exciting that just jazzes people and gets people talking. And to the point where we're talking about Superman with people that we never thought we would. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's what I want out of this. So any of my part where I'm reluctant or anything like that, that's where I want it to be that. I don't want it to be, oh, they're bumping that again. And now all of a sudden there's a crabby crowd that is, review bombing it because of some stupid thing that has nothing to do with the film itself, which happens all the time. So fingers crossed on this one. Marvel Comics app, and to be clear, this is the one that's operated under Comixology. I didn't know it was still around. You can redeem through Marvel Unlimited. Cool. You know that it's going to be tying into Marvel Unlimited. I am using the Marvel Unlimited right now. That's neat. I wasn't using the Marvel Comics app, though. I wonder if any of my stuff that I have under Comixology can be... I'm going to have to learn more about how that works with Marvel Unlimited. I think that's cool. Nick just reached out and said that I just read Superman number 3. This is such a great run by Joshua Williamson. It gives me the total DC AU vibes, and it's wonderful. It definitely sold me on grabbing Williamson's Green Arrow later this month. This and Action Comics are excellent reads. Agree. We're actually going to be talking about next episode, more Superman. We're doing a multi-episode look at the Superman books. Yeah, it's a good shout-out. What Green Arrow? I'm excited for... Man, I'm so jonesing for Green Arrow. Yes. I'm ready for Green Arrow.
Right now. Yep.
Russo brothers say they're open to directing the Batman movie for James Gunn's DC Studios, and I would be very thrilled to see that. I love the Russo brothers.
Jared posted that they later kind of recanted that, saying they were open to working in DCU, but maybe not something as big as Batman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't care. Whatever they would be willing to do. Yay. Yeah. Here's the thing what you want. You want people working on projects that they're motivated for. So whatever that is, I'm interested when there's people that are excited to do any kind of project. I got to start reading more of this Scooby-Doo stuff. Because there's another Scooby-Doo one that's up there. It's Scooby-Doo and dressed as Wonder Dog, Shaggy dressed as Marvin, and we've got Daphne and Fred dressed as the Wonder Twins, and we've got Sinestro turning them into the Sinestro Corps members.
Well, no, they steal the ring from him because they just live in fear.
Oh!
They're the absolute true embodiment of the greatest fear of all. Because, think about it. They're always zoinks, always scared. These guys are fear personified. I love it. It cracked me up, man.
This is funny.
Yeah.
I got to start reading more of this. Are you reading any of this? Like this?
I'll be honest with you, they posted here. I read it.
But, this is making me want to read more because it's funny.
Yes.
I really want to read this now. I'm missing something and not reading this book because this kind of stuff is interesting. Tales of the Titans set to reveal the backstories of Starfire, Raven, Donna Troy, and Beast Boy, which is cool. I'm really glad to see this renewed Titans focus over at DC and kind of elevating them again, just because their history has been so great. PSA from Poison Ivy, remember to take loving care of your plants every day.
Yeah, I wonder why they chose April 20th to announce that.
Super cool. The Mariners have a home run trident.
Okay. I first thought this was a joke.
No.
Is this legit?
I don't know.
Because if this is legit, outstanding.
Yes. I think we all need one. I don't know.
I'm assuming if you hit a home run, you get the trident.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
DC announces new Superman and Teen Titans series written by Mark Waid. More Mark Waid is great because I'm so excited for Shazam. His stuff that he's been doing is great. Yes, please bring it on.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
Some cool Young Justice context I love these out of context comic panels. And thank you everyone on the team who has been posting such cool DC news. That was a fun segment.
Hey, I got one quick thing that's not DC related.
Go for it.
So I figured I'd wait to the end. Okay. Just want to give a big thanks to Russell for recommending The Blue Flame. It's in Bolt Comics. A long time ago, he recommended I started reading it. And Issue 10 just came out, which was the end of the story arc. It's an absolutely brilliant story. So if you never checked it out, The Blue Flame, Vault Comics, 100% recommend it to anybody. I absolutely love that story. So thank you, my friend.
That's awesome. Yeah, please feel free to call in for any of our listeners, Russell, anybody. If you got recommendations of comics, DC or otherwise, put them in the Facebook group, email them, shout them out on the show. Obviously, we want people to be aware of DC-related news on this show, but I don't know, we're fans of comics in general. I love getting turned on to new stuff that I've been missing. So thank you for everyone who posts that, and we will see you next episode for this.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. Whatever method you prefer to contact us, we'd love to hear from you. RagingBullets.com is our show website, and that feeds into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community, and please consider joining it, and I appreciate everyone that takes the time to post all the clever stuff that they're finding. Everything from cool little artwork to news articles to funny things. It's just such a great community over there. It's truly a highlight, and that's what our Speeding Bullets segment is totally building off of. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Wonder Woman issue number 800, 40% off, only $359, as well as the various the 8 variant covers that we have also are running at 40% off. And we have the DC Pride 2023 one-shot. It is at 40% off, only $5.99, as well as the various variant covers for DC Pride. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have some really amazing stuff. Batman Who Laughs, the deluxe edition hardcovers, $39.99 regularly, 50% off, only $19.99. Legends of the Dark Knight, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez hardcover, $49.99 regularly, 50% off, only $24.99. I give this work the highest possible recommendation. Terrific artwork. Who is Wonder Woman? The deluxe edition hardcover, $29.99 regularly, 50% off, only $14.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Be sure to check us out the About Us section on our show website that you can find out how to connect to Jim and myself on gaming platforms and social media. I've updated that recently. You can also catch me on Is It Jaws if you're into film reviews. And our next episode, Jim and I are going to be back and talking Action Comics and Superman. We will see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim. Jim. Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
it's
Jim, how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.